Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second Hope Live. I'm Adriana Malazzi, community advocate for House of Possibilities. I facilitate the self-advocacy group at Hope, and where our goal is to provide a well-rounded knowledge of advocacy through a variety of activities and guest speakers sharing their lived experiences in the realm of inclusion and disability rights. Today's guest is a wheelchair user who's traveled the globe. He's an award-winning travel writer and most recently a published author of a children's book. So I'd like to welcome our friend Cory Lee.
Hey,
Cory.
thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you, and it's good to see you again.
Thanks for coming. And I know this past weekend you were in Florida because of the pandemic. You're not traveling as you usually do, but you're going to destinations that are accessible by car.
Yeah.
So that's great. So, people often say that they were bit by the travel bug. I know for myself and my sister Nicole, I think it was in our blood. My mother was an aspiring flight attendant, and my dad was not too thrilled that she would be away a lot. So she settled for the next best thing to be a travel agent. So
nice.
we, it's in our blood. We've traveled overseas since we were babies, literally. So what was it for you? Was it just something that you always wanted to do, to travel everywhere, or did something spark that interest?
Yeah. Well, when I was younger, my mom raised me as a single parent, and she was a school teacher. And so we always had a few months every summer where we could kind of explore and travel domestically here in the US. And so we would go to like DC, New York City, Walt Disney World. We went there like a million times. I'm still a bit of a Disney addict, so it's one of my favorite places in the world. But then when I turned 15, we went to the Bahamas, and that was kind of the first time that I got to go to another country, and I got to try like different foods and meet like new people and just experiencing that Bahamian culture and just being there and experiencing that. It really, that I think was the moment that the travel bug was really born in me, because I thought, if the Bahamas is only like a couple hours away by plane, then what would somewhere like India be like? Or what would Australia be like? Or, Morocco, or any of these amazing places around the world. And so after that trip, it just really got me curious as to, what the rest of the world would be like. And so then I started, trying to plan more and more grand adventures around the world after that.
Nice. So I love your relationship with your mom. You and your mom. I love watching your impromptu live videos, and you guys love ribbing each other. It's hilarious. But what was that conversation like when you were like? I mean, did you say, "Hey, mom, this is something I want to do. I want to travel around the world, write about it." Like, what was that conversation like?
Yeah, so we were actually researching for a trip to Australia, and this was back in 2013 before I started the blog. I started the blog Curb Free with Cory Lee in December of 2013. And so in about November, like a month before that, we were researching for an upcoming trip to Australia, and I got online and was like trying to find out which attractions were accessible and were there accessible taxis in Sydney, Australia, and all of these like little details about accessibility. And the more that I researched, the more I started noticing that, there really wasn't a lot of accessible travel information online. There were only one or two other blogs out there at the time in 2013. And so that is kind of where the idea for Curb Free with Cory Lee was born. My dog's outside barking. I told you he would be before we started, but sorry if you hear that. But yeah, we were researching for that trip, and there just wasn't a ton of accessible travel information. And so that's where the idea was born to, maybe I could start a blog or a resource and show, other wheelchair users what all is possible around the world and share
Mhm.
my experiences of travel. And so then my mom actually came up with the name of the blog, Curb Free with Cory Lee. And
Mhm.
then I kind of just went all in and I told myself that I would, give it about 1 year. And at the end of that year, if, people were reading my blog and I had some followers and it was, a little successful, then I would stick with it. And if it was
Mhm.
just, dead air and nobody was really reading it, then I would maybe try to get a job in marketing, which is what my degree is in, and just a more traditional job in marketing. And so at the end of that year, luckily, things were going good with the blog. And so I decided to stick with it. And now here we are today.
Nice, nice, great. So, I've traveled abroad a lot as well, and um, here in the U.S., I believe that, and I could be wrong, so someone out there in the virtual space correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe here in the U.S. we have the most robust set of rule or laws and policy to protect people with disabilities. We just celebrated the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yeah,
Cory, I believe you just turned 30 as well, correct?
I did this past
Yeah.
February. Yeah,
Yeah, and so you're literally part of, you are the ADA generation.
yeah,
Um, and, I honestly believe that I have been afforded so many opportunities by being born and living in the U.S. That I otherwise wouldn't have if I was living in another country, especially uh, at the time when I was born.
yeah,
But in all of my travels, when I go abroad, the one thing that I do notice is that people don't see the wheelchair first. They see the person first, whereas in the US, especially if you have a visible disability, they tend to see the disability first.
yeah.
Can you speak about that? Have you experienced the same? Or,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like whenever, especially if I'm traveling in like Europe and Scandinavia, people are so friendly. And like, exactly like you said, I mean, I feel like they don't see the wheelchair necessarily as much as people do here in the States. Um, but I don't know like what I don't know. I mean, it's definitely noticeable because I mean, I remember being in like Iceland and there was at a reservation at this like really great restaurant in Reykjavik, Iceland, and I went to it, but there was like a pretty big step to get in, and the chef actually just came out of the back with like a couple staff members and helped lift me up like into the restaurant. And this wheelchair that I'm in, it's a powered one, so it's pretty heavy. And not easy to lift up, but they were just like willing to lend a hand and like they don't even think twice about it. Like I never really, have to ask for help.
yeah.
And like Scandinavia, I feel like it's really one of the best places in the world for a wheelchair user. The whole Scandinavia region in Europe, but. Also, I mean, in Australia, I found a lot of access, and in Australia, I mean, pretty much everything was accessible when I went, so I was able to
Mhm.
use the transportation, the ferry, the buses, taxis, and it was all accessible. And so that was kind of one of the first trips where I felt, really like I could be independent and do anything that I wanted to do within that
Mhm.
destination, which is something that I often don't find in the US and a lot of places. So, in
Yeah.
some regards, I think that, other places are a little better for accessibility than a lot of places in the US, but you are
Mhm.
right in that in the US, we do have the ADA, which is, I mean, amazing, and we are very fortunate. I mean, I really kind of took it for granted all these years, and then I went to India a few years ago, and when I was there, people just kept like staring at me, and they would like run over to the van to watch me unload out of the van, and they could not even believe that I used the powered wheelchair. Like they had never seen one before. And at
Yeah.
first, when they were all staring at me and kind of taking pictures of me, I felt, a little awkward about it, and it was a little different. But then when I started talking to them and really like trying to understand why they were doing that, it was because they have like friends and family back home that need a wheelchair, but they just can't afford it, and their government won't help them get any equipment like a wheelchair. And so I mean it's really just incredible, when we sit down and think about it, like how lucky we are because of the ADA and how much
Mhm.
it's really impacted our lives, I think.
Yes. Yes. So I was wondering, do you have a role model, or have you had different role models throughout the different stages in your life?
Yeah, I think I have a ton of role models, actually, but I'll say maybe a few of mine. I mean, my mom, we've talked about her. I mean, she's one of them for sure. And then I guess as far as like a travel role model, Samantha Brown is kind of she's her show used to be on the Travel Channel, and it was called
Mhm.
Passport to Europe. And I started watching that when I was like 13 or 14, and that really like it's the first time that I kind of got a glimpse into what travel in Europe could be like. And
Mhm.
then in China she went to, and then she went to Latin America, and so kind of all over. And that's really, when I started thinking like, oh, there's some really cool places around the world. And so she is, I guess, definitely my travel idol, for sure. And then I think Judy Human. I know you interviewed her a little while back, and she's just an incredible person. She's done so much for all people with disabilities, and I'm tremendously thankful for everything that she's done.
Yeah. 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 I think Samantha Brown is like the travel role model for so many
Yeah.
people in your field. I know
Oh, yeah.
it's me, Kellis. She's me, Kellis as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If
So
if you're in the travel industry, Samantha's kind of at the top. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So we have a few people from Hope who would love to ask you some questions.
Okay.
So we'll get started, okay?
Awesome. Yeah. Sounds good.
Hello, my name is Shannon.
Hey, Shannon. How are you?
Good. I have a question. Where do you plan to travel once the pandemic is over?
There's a lot of places I want to travel. During the pandemic, I've been able to go to like the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and just drive to some different places. And then I went to Florida this past weekend just for a beach trip. But when the pandemic's over, I really want to get back on a plane and go maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like what would be the top destination, but probably Japan. Japan. I'm supposed to actually was supposed to go to Japan last month for the Paralympics, and that unfortunately got canceled. So it's probably my top dream destination. And once it's finally safe to do so, I definitely want to go there. Yeah, thank you
Um,
for the question.
have fun.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Uh, Thanks, Shannon. And who's next? Joey. Oops, Joey is muted. Hold on.
Huh.
Oh, here it is.
All right, can you hear me? Okay.
No.
Hi, I'm Joey. How long did it take to create your book, and is it available on local stores near you?
Hey, Joey. Thank you for the question. And it took about 3 years from start to finish to do the book. So my mom and I actually co-wrote the book, and we started writing it about 3 years ago. And then we had to hire an illustrator to do all of the illustrations and pictures within the book. And so that took a while to get all those done and get the book formatted. And so it was kind of a long process, but we finally released it this past July, actually on July 26th, the 30th anniversary of the ADA. And so it is not available probably in your local bookstore, but it is available on Amazon and
Yes.
Barnes and Noble. So if you just go online, you can find it right there on Amazon.
So will you make a second book out of it, or you don't know? That's your first book, right?
Yeah, it's the first children's book that I've ever done, and we definitely plan to do more books in the future. So we're hoping to make it a series, and maybe next time Corcor will visit a different destination, and so yeah, but definitely more books coming, and hopefully next summer.
The picture's beautiful. Who did the paintings and illustrator?
Yeah, the illustrator was Emmanuel Moore, and he's a family friend, and I think he just did a wonderful job. I mean, it really exceeded our expectations. So, yeah, I'm so glad that you liked it.
Yeah, it was interesting. I loved it
Yeah, thank you.
so much.
Thank you, Joey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Corey. My name is Anthony.
Hey, how are you?
First of all, I want to say thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Oh, yeah, it's a pleasure.
Thank you. I have a question on behalf of Evelyn. Um, Evelyn wants to know what was your favorite place to visit?
Ah, my favorite place. I would probably say Morocco. I went to Morocco about 2 years ago, and I really, before I went, I didn't have any. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect. I guess it was never somewhere that I was just really, really, really wanting to visit, and I went and kind of had zero expectations, and then it really blew them all away. So I went to Marrakesh and like saw the snake charmers, then went out into the desert and rode a camel. And that's something that I never really thought I would even be able to do. And so the fact that, I could finally be in the Sahara Desert and have that incredible experience is just something that I'll never forget. And it was, yeah, I can't wait to go back and experience Morocco again.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Corey. My name is Cathy. I work here at Hope with the members, and I have a question on behalf of Carl. Carl wants to know, how far can your wheelchair take you before the battery dies?
That's a good question. I can go about 10 miles. And it has died before. I was actually at a Disney World, and I'd been in the park all day, and then it just died on me at the very end of the day after the fireworks show. And my mom had to put it in manual mode and push me out. And since it is like a big, heavy power chair, it's not the easiest to push. And so it took us quite a while to get out of the park, but since then I've usually end up taking the charger and just throw it in my backpack, and then if I'm getting a little low on power, then I'll quickly charge it up in a restaurant or something. But Yeah, about 10 miles is the total.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, my name is Ben.
Hey, Ben, good to see you.
You too. My question is, do you have any pets?
I do. You probably heard them barking a little
Yeah.
bit ago. But I have 2 dogs and 1 cat. Yeah, I have a Dalmatian is one of the dogs, and then a blue heeler, and then I have a little orange cat, and their names are America is one of the dogs, the Dalmatian, and Fruki is the other dog, and then the cat is Kiki. Do you have any pets?
Yes, I do. I have two. So I have Buddy, and he's a cockapoo. And then I have another dog named Champ, and he's Australian Labradoodle.
Ah, nice. I love Labradoodles. I've always wanted one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your question.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Shannon again.
Hey,
I
Shannon.
have a question.
All right.
Would you like to travel to the North or South Pole?
I would kind of like to. I've been to Antarctica, so near the South Pole, but we didn't go all the way to the South Pole. But they say to get to the South Pole, it's a very hard trek to get there. So not sure if I would, want to be that cold for that long. But I mean, I'm not gonna say no because it could be a fun experience, maybe. But I've had some
Have you
friends.
ever seen the Northern Lights before?
I have. When I was in Iceland, we saw the Northern Lights, and it's really,
Cool.
yeah.
I would
Hopefully,
like to see that
yeah.
in the
Hopefully, we can
future.
see them one day. Yeah, they're awesome. I hope you can.
How about on cruise ships? Have you been on cruise ships or Spirit of Boston before?
Been to Boston? I have been to Boston.
Have you been on a boat called Spirit of Boston?
Oh, not on that boat. No, but I have been on cruises. I've been on maybe 6 or 7 cruises. And yeah,
Wow.
yeah, cruising is probably my favorite way to travel. I
Some
love.
someday I would, if I had to go on a cruise, I would travel to Bermuda, Bahamas,
Wow.
and Italy,
Yeah,
and then
that'd
come
be
back
fun.
in the USA and go to Las Vegas and Florida.
Ah, yeah, those are some of
I've
my favorite
been to
places.
I've been to New Jersey plenty of times. I went down to the Jersey Shore with my family. We love it down there. We could do rides and games and
Ah,
have
yeah,
ice cream and giant pizzas. We
Yeah.
nice.
also went to New Hampshire
I have not been
for
there.
my cousin's uh, first communion and confirmation.
Nice. All right, Shannon, we have to get to the next question.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hello there. So, my name is Tanner. I'm a staff member over at Hope, and so I'm going to be bringing us home with the final question for the day.
Alrighty.
And that question is, what is the hardest aspect of traveling to all these places?
I think the hardest thing is really the whole flying experience. So flying as a wheelchair user on a plane, it's pretty difficult because I can't stay in the wheelchair when I'm actually on the plane. So they put the wheelchair where the luggage goes, and then I'm kind of just sitting there and unable to move throughout the plane ride. And so things like going, to use the restroom during the flight, that's really difficult if not impossible. And then worrying about will the wheelchair be damaged during flight is another big issue. And so, yeah, the flying part is really what I dread the most about traveling. And hopefully one day it'll be better. But I always just try to remember, throughout the plane ride, like it may be difficult now, but it's going to be worth it once I get there, and try to keep that thought in the front of my mind the whole time.
Yeah. From in the past, I've had to worry about not having my luggage after the plane lands. I'm sure that you have to deal with something much more stressful.
Yeah, oh yeah, and the luggage. They've lost my luggage too, and the wheelchair. So
You've lost the wheelchair.
yeah,
Oh boy.
yeah, we took off one time, and we got almost to the end of the runway. We were leaving Atlanta, and the pilot came on the overhead and said, "Oh, we actually forgot to load a wheelchair, and so we're going to be turning back around." And luckily, he turned back around to get the wheelchair. But yeah, if he wouldn't have turned around, it would have been bad.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Talk about stressful.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
thank you very much for joining us today, Cory.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Cory, for joining us. I know how, as a wheelchair user myself, I definitely feel your pain. It's like the most stressful part of traveling is, will my chair come out of the plane in one piece?
Right.
Is always the question.
Yeah, I'm always worried the entire flight about that.
Yeah. And then if you were, depending on your perception, if you're unlucky or lucky to be at the window seat, and you get to see them load your chair, and you get to see them mishandling your chair, and then that just adds to the stress level as well. Yeah, but luckily there's an organization called All Wheels Up. Oh, Jenny Ventura is right here saying, "You guys rock."
Oh,
Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, very stressful flying with a wheelchair.
Yeah, All Wheels Up is doing some incredible work and trying to make the whole flying process as a wheelchair user a lot easier. And
Yes.
hopefully one day we'll be able to just roll on the plane and have a more pleasant experience. But I hope the day comes soon.
Yes. Well, thanks again, Cory. For all of you out there, follow Cory Lee at Curb Free with Cory Lee, and you can purchase his children's book at online or right online at Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And it's Let's Explore with Core. So thank you again, Cory.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks. All right. Well, bye, everyone out there, and join us next time on our Hope Live.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.